Yes, people, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all South India students. How are you? Hope so you are well. I am also good. So today we are going to start with one subject, and that subject number 7. Today is like our basic lecture, so don't worry about that. There is no need to write anything. Whenever I dictate you to write, then only you have to write. Otherwise, don't write anything. And there is no need of any book also, like notebook. There is no need of notebook. We have given you the textbook. This is your volume number 1. Mostly people got this particular volume, that is volume number 1. After that, you will get the volume 2 also. After that, you will get the compiler, that is question answer compiler, and after that you will get the compact also. So there will be a 4-5 books you will get. Don't worry about that. So there is no need to write anything. Whenever I will instruct you to write, then only you have to write. Otherwise, there is no need to write anything. Just take your table, just take your tea or coffee, whatever you like, and just listen to me for next 3 hours. So all people, just pay attention. We are going to start with your subject, that is subject paper number 7. And paper number 7, all people just pay attention. So we are going to study paper number 7, and that paper number 7 name is a direct tax and international taxation. So paper number 7, direct tax and international taxation. All people just pay attention. This paper will cover your 100 marks, and in this 100 marks, sir, there is any breakup about direct tax and international taxation? Answer is yes, there is a breakup. So all people just pay attention. Out of this 100 mark, your 70 marks is dedicated to direct tax, and in direct tax there is only one law, that is income tax law. So out of 100 marks, 70 marks is dedicated to the direct tax, and in direct tax there is a one law, that is the income tax law. Now remaining 30 marks, this remaining 30 marks towards international taxation, and in international taxation there are 8 topics. We will discuss like some brief about those topics, so don't worry about that. So all people just pay attention what I am saying, that we are starting direct tax and international taxation paper, total 100 marks paper. Out of 100 marks, 70 marks is for direct tax, and in direct tax there is a income tax law. We are going to discuss the income tax law. Now my question to all of you, sir, you have written income tax law. So we will discuss income tax act or income tax law. So my question to all of you, what is the difference between law and act? So my first question to all of you, what is the difference between law and act? Because we are going to discuss income tax law, not income tax act. So what is the difference between law and act? Just tell me. Just tell me, what is the difference between law and act? Okay, sir, this is law and this is act. Just tell me. I am waiting for your answer. Difference between law and act, because we will discuss law. Just tell me, I am waiting for your answer. Okay. So I got 5-6 people answer. One is a Sheshadri Srinivas, and Sheshadri answer that law comprise act rules. After that there is one more answer, that is act is represented by bill. Okay. One more answer, law include the act, rule, circular, notification. One more answer, act is passed by parliament through a bill, whereas law is rules and regulation by the authority. That is Amrita's answer. Okay, so what is the difference between act and rule? I will explain you, don't worry about that, just pay attention. So basically, law is always a broader term. Law is a broader term and act is a narrow term, or I can say that the one small term. I can take one example. All people just pay attention. Now this is a law. This total round, this is a law. Now in this law, act is also there. After that some rules is also there. After that some notification, circular, as well as the case laws, etc, etc. So when we study act as well as the rules or notification, circular, case laws and all, in that case I can say that we studied the income tax law. In GST also, there is a one GST Act, and after that there is a GST law. So you always study the GST law, because law is a broader term. Law comprise of your act as well as the rules, your notification, circular, high court judgment, Supreme Court judgment. When you study combine the thing, then you can say that you are studying the law. So guys, in this particular 70 marks of your paper, direct tax, income tax law, we will discuss the income tax law. In simple word, I can say that law means a Indian cricket team. Law means a Indian cricket team. Now, here act is a Virat Kohli. Our captain, Virat Kohli, is a act. After that, rules is a Rohit Sharma. After that, notification, circular is a Jasprit Bumrah. So, or bowler, wicket keeper and all. So, in team, that team is a law. And if you discuss about the captain, that captain is obviously act. Vice captain is the rules. After that, wicket keeper, bowler is a notification, case laws and all. That is the difference between law and act. So law means a broader term. In that particular term, you will discuss the everything about that particular, that is called law. And act is just a part of law. So all people just pay attention. Okay. We started with the paper number 7, that is direct tax and international taxation. 100 marks paper. Out of that, 70 marks is DT, or I can say that income tax law, and 30 marks is the international taxation. And this 30 marks is very interesting. So in this 30 marks, we will discuss the 8 topic. Now which 8 topic? All people just pay attention. Huh? First topic in international taxation is NRI taxation. Second topic we will discuss about transfer pricing. Third topic is a DTAA, or I can say that double taxation avoidance agreement. Fourth topic is the authority of advance ruling. Fifth topic we will discuss equalization levy. Sixth topic we will discuss about the tax treaty. Seventh topic we will discuss model tax convention, and eighth topic we will discuss about the BEPS, that is base erosion and profit shifting. All people just pay attention. Huh? So I am saying that in your international taxation part, this 30 marks part is very interesting because that is new for you. In your intermediate or IPCC, you already studied this direct tax part because you know about salary head, house property, business, profession, capital gain, clubbing and all. You already done this part in your intermediate, but obviously you like done some topic, remaining topic, assessment procedure and all, penalties and all, that we will discuss in CA final. But this part 30 marks is totally new for you. This is the international taxation part. Now first topic is the NRI topic. I'm just giving you brief today about your topics and all, your syllabus and all, your direct tax subject. So all people just pay attention. First topic is the NRI taxation. Sir, what we will discuss in this particular topic? So in this topic, we will discuss about the tax liability of non-resident as well as the NRI. Now you know that various people from your area, they are working in Dubai. They are working in the Saudi and all. Sir, they are getting the income. They are earning income there and all. Is that income will be taxed in India or not? Suppose they invested in India, that NRI person invested in India, then what will be the tax rate and all? So in this particular topic, we will discuss all about the tax of non-resident as well as NRI. Now your question may be like, sir, what is the meaning of NRI? Sir, what is the meaning of NRI? So NRI means, always remember that if any person is a non-resident, and along with non-resident, that person is either Indian citizen or person of Indian origin, then that person will be called as NRI. NRI means if any person is a non-resident as per income tax law. Now non-resident income tax law, how non-resident? You know that you discuss some condition in your intermediate or IPCC that is stay in India for 182 days or more in previous year, stay in India for 60 days or more in previous year, and 365 days or more in last 4 previous year. Then only that person will become the resident, otherwise that person will become the non-resident. So suppose if any person is a non-resident, and along with non-resident, if that person is an Indian citizen, means that person is having the Indian citizenship, or person of Indian origin, then that person will be called as NRI. Now question is that, what is the meaning of person of Indian origin? So person of Indian origin means either of parents or grandparents born in undivided India, then that person will be known as person of Indian origin. Now undivided India means before 1947, you know that India, like Pakistan and Bangladesh, was part of India. So if anyone parents, either of parents or grandparents born in undivided India, then that person will be known as the person of Indian origin. So if any person is a person of Indian origin plus non-resident, then that person will be known as the NRI in income tax. I can take one example. Suppose there is a one person, name is a Monty Panesar. Monty Panesar, he is playing from England cricket team. Now he is not an Indian citizen, he is an England citizen, but his grandparents was born in Punjab, for an example. His grandparents was born in Punjab. In that case, that Monty Panesar will be treated as the person of Indian origin. And person of Indian origin along with non-resident, in that case, that person will be known as the NRI. You know that whole Pakistan is NRI. Today, whole Pakistan is NRI because in Pakistan, suppose there is a one player, Shoaib Akhtar. And Shoaib Akhtar parents was born in undivided India because before 1947, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh was same. So his parents was born in undivided India. So he is a person of Indian origin and he is a non-resident. Then he will be treated as NRI. So NRI means first, that person should be non-resident, along with that either Indian citizen or person of Indian origin, then that person will be known as NRI. So we will discuss about NRI taxation as well as the NR taxation in that first topic. Now second topic, we will discuss about transfer pricing in international taxation. Now sir, what is the meaning of transfer pricing? Sir, we already studied one transfer pricing in our paper number 5, that is SCMPE. Or you can say that costing. So in costing or SCMP, we already done one transfer pricing. So sir, is that transfer pricing and this particular transfer pricing topic are same? Answer is no. Both are totally different. Now what we will discuss in this transfer pricing, just I am taking one example. All people just pay attention. I am going to take one example, very interesting example. Now how people avoid the tax, just pay attention. You know that in India, there is a one company, name is a HUL. In India, there is a one company, name is a HUL, that is Hindustan Unilever Limited. Now, this HUL is an Indian company, but it is a multinational group subsidiary company, that is a Unilever group company. Their holding company is located in USA, or suppose UK, and that company name is a Unilever UK Limited. UK Unilever Limited, that is UUK. In Thailand, they have Thailand Unilever Limited. In Pakistan, they have Pakistan Unilever Limited. In India, they have the Hindustan Unilever Limited. So both are group company, that UUL in the UK and HUL in the India. Both are group company. Now what happened? Just pay attention. Suppose in India, the tax rate is 30%. Normally tax rate is 30% in India. But in UK, for an example, suppose in UK tax rate is only 10%. Now how they will set the transaction to minimize their tax liability? Just pay attention. In India, this HUL company is selling some cream, that fairness cream and all, that Fair and Lovely and all, for an example. So here HUL is selling one cream, and suppose this cream is purchased by HUL from the UUL from UK. So just pay attention what happened. Suppose in the current year, this HUL purchased cream from UK Unilever Limited, and value of that cream is, for an example, 1 lakh rupees. 1 lakh rupees is real value of that cream. But guys, both are holding subsidiary company. Both are same group company. So what they will do, you know that they will influence the price, or they will manipulate the invoice value, they will manipulate the price, and they are saying that no, we will not prepare bill at 1 lakh rupees. We are going to prepare a bill at 5 lakh rupees, because both are holding subsidiary company, they can manipulate the things, no problem at all. So here, like Indian company purchasing cream that worth is 1 lakh, but they are purchased at 5 lakh at heavy value. Now question is that, okay, sir, what will be benefit from that transaction? So if you focus to the Indian company HUL, so whenever HUL will prepare the P&L account, then obviously in the P&L account here in the debit side, they will show as purchase at 5 lakh rupees. They will show purchase at 5 lakh rupees, and due to that, what will happen? You know that in India, can I say that Indian company HUL, they reduce their profit, they decrease their profit by 4 lakh rupees due to this particular transaction, because they recorded at 5 lakh, billing is at 5 lakh. So they reduce their profit in India at by 4 lakh rupees, and due to that in India they save the tax. They save the tax at the rate 30%, that is 1,20,000. 1,20,000 they save the tax in India. Now you will say that, okay, sir, in India purchase price is 5 lakh, but in UK sale price will also be 5 lakh. They will increase their profit in UK. Yes, no problem at all. So what they will do, you know that in UK they will prepare the P&L account. At that time in buy side they will show the sales at 5 lakh rupees, or in simple word I can say that profit in UK will be increased by 4 lakh rupees. But guys, in UK tax rate is only 10%. So in UK, they will pay the tax at the rate 10%, and it comes to the 40,000 rupees. Can I say that this company, this multinational group ultimately save the tax of rupees 80,000? Ultimately, they save the tax of rupees 80,000. Like, you know that whenever there are some like connected companies, or I can say the MNC group companies, they will influence, you change the bill value. So like companies are doing this type of practice after globalization. After globalization, when companies were doing this type of practice, then our Indian lawmaker also incorporated some provision in Income Tax Act. We incorporated transfer pricing related provision in Income Tax Act in 2002. So in India, transfer pricing related provision incorporated in 2002, and in that particular provision, we mention that we will not accept this 5 lakh value. Means whatever value you have shown that 5 lakh, we will not accept that 5 lakh value. Again, we will calculate true value to the 1 lakh rupees, and this 1 lakh will be known as the arm length price. Now question is that what is the arm length price? So arm length price means a true price, a fair price, a right price, a legitimate price, a reasonable price. That is called your arm length price. Means we will calculate your transaction value at arm length price. So this all practice we will do in transfer pricing topic. So in transfer pricing topic will be very interesting topic, transfer pricing. In that we will calculate the arm length price and all. If you are doing your articleship in any Big Four in the transfer pricing segment, then obviously you know about that there are two types of database and all. One is the Capitaline database, Provest database, and from that database you calculate the arm length price and all. So that everything we will discuss in this particular topic, that is transfer pricing. So this is little bit different as compared to your costing. Your costing is a different transfer pricing, that is departmental transfer pricing and all, but here it will be a MNC group companies related transfer pricing provision we will discuss in that topic. Now third topic in international taxation part, that is DTAA. Sir, DTAA. Now what is the meaning of DTAA? So DTAA full form is very simple, Double taxation avoidance agreement. Now guys, you know that you already studied in your intermediate or IPCC. Sir, if any person is a resident of any one country, then whole world income is taxable in that country. You already studied in your IPCC. Okay, if you are a resident of India, then whole world income is taxable in India. In simple word, I can take one example. BB sir, I am a resident of India. So whatever income I am earning from India as well as the foreign, that whole world income is taxable in India due to the residence rule. Residence rule, there is one rule that is called residence rule. Residence rule says that if any person is resident of any particular country, then that country has a sovereign right to tax global income of that person. Means that country have sovereign right to tax global income for that particular person. Now guys, if any person is not a resident of that country, but if source is located in that country, your income is from that country, your source is located in that country, then that country has the power to tax that particular income if you earn income from the source in that country. I can take one example. Suppose, you know that in India every year there is a one tournament, cricket tournament called IPL. There is a one cricketer from England. He used to visit India to play the IPL. He earned the income from IPL in India. Then whatever income he has earned from that IPL, is Indian government will tax that income or not? Answer is yes. Indian government is going to tax that income because that person is earning income from India. That is called your source rule. So source rule says that if any person is not a resident of that country, but source is located in that country, that person is using resources of that country, that source is located in that country, then he is earning income from that source, then obviously that income is going to be taxable in that particular country. So guys, now think one thing, now understand one thing. When there is a one residence rule, now residence rule says that if any person is resident of one country and he is earning income from anywhere in the world, that resident country will take the tax. They will charge the tax. Source rule says that even you are not a resident of that country, but your source of income is located in that country, then that source country will also charge the tax. So due to that, you know that there may be a double taxation. Double taxation means one income may be taxed in two countries. Twice, like two countries. I can take one example. I am a resident of India and I am earning income from Nepal. Suppose I used to take lecture in Nepal and I am earning income from Nepal. On that particular income, is India will charge the tax or not? Answer is yes, India is going to charge the tax because I am a resident of India. Is Nepal will charge the tax or not? Answer is yes, Nepal is also going to charge the tax because source is located in Nepal. So there is a double taxation. Or in the same line, I can take one more example. There is a one cricketer from England, name is a Joe Root. So suppose that Root, he came to India to play IPL, he earned some income, India will charge the tax due to the source rule. And England will also charge the tax due to the residence rule. So there is a double taxation. Now guys, double taxation is always a genuine hardship for any person. If there is a double taxation, then obviously there is a genuine hardship for any person, double taxation. So how to avoid the double taxation? And to avoid the double taxation, there may be an agreement with foreign country. And how that agreement will work and all, how that relief or rebate will be available to the person, that we will discuss in that third topic, that is double taxation avoidance agreement. So in that DTAA topic, we will calculate the rebate. If any person is resident of India, he is earning from income from UK, and what DTAA says. And suppose if there is no DTAA with any country, for an example with Pakistan, we don't have any DTAA. In that case, how that income will be taxed and all, that we will discuss in that particular topic, that is DTAA. Now next topic. In international taxation, we will discuss about AAR. Now AAR means Authority of Advance Ruling. Now authority of advance ruling, from name only, it says that authority of advance ruling. Advance means in advance and ruling means judgment. You know that guys, Indian laws are very complex. Like you know that we Indians are not able to understand Indian laws Now what happens? Suppose if any non-resident person, he wants to like invest in India, or he wants to set up some like company in India, he wants to invest in India, he wants to like enter into some arrangement or some transaction in India, then he don't know about his tax liability. Okay, what will happen with him in India? Because Indian tax law are very complex. So there is a one authority, and this authority is known as Authority of Advance Ruling. From this year it will be known as the Advance Ruling Board. We will discuss that. There is some amendment in this particular topic. So from this year it will be known as the Advance Ruling Board. So there is a one authority, that is Authority of Advance Ruling or Advance Ruling Board. You can make an application to Authority of Advance Ruling and you can take the judgment in advance. Means you can ensure about that, okay, this will be my tax treatment in India. I can take one example. Suppose there is a one Japan based company. They are going to construct or build a metro train or bullet train in India. Now they don't know about their tax liability in India, what will be the tax liability, what will be the tax rate and all. So they have to make an application to Authority of Advance Ruling. Advance Ruling Authority will check the application, they will check the fact, and as per law they will give one judgment, that is judgment of Authority of Advance Ruling. So obviously that non-resident can understand that what will be the tax liability or tax treatment on his income in India. So in that part we will discuss in that particular topic, that is Authority of Advance Ruling. Now there is a one more topic, that is equalization levy. So in international taxation, this equalization levy, now what is the equalization levy? In the practical life, equalization levy, we always call this topic as a Google tax or Facebook tax. Now before discussing about equalization levy, just I want to explain you one thing. Okay, sir, if you are doing business, there are two type of business in foreign country. One is the business with foreign country and one is the business in foreign country. There are two type of business with foreign country. One is the business with foreign country and one is the business in foreign country. Now guys, if you are doing business with foreign country, then in that foreign country your business income is not taxable. But suppose if you are doing business in that foreign country, then your income will be taxable in that country. I can take one example. You can easily understand this concept. Just pay attention. I am teaching DT from Mumbai. So I am teaching DT. Our pen drive and Google Drive and books also like available. So now what happened? We have various students in Nepal. In Nepal, Saudi, Dubai, we have various students. They are doing the CA and all. So what happened? We generally receive the order from Nepal also. So suppose in Nepal, from Nepal, there is one person called, name is Lakshman. Lakshman made one order to our website. He purchased Google Drive or pen drive along with the books and all. So whenever we will get the order from Nepal, then obviously we receive the money from that person. After that, we will pack that book and we will dispatch through the courier, DTDC or FedEx or whatever international courier. We will dispatch that book to the Nepal. Now here question is that I am earning income from Nepal only because that person situated in Nepal. I am earning income from Nepal. But is Nepal is liable to, Nepal can tax my income, that particular income in Nepal? Answer is no, because I am doing business with Nepal. It is called your export. So whenever you export something, then that country will not take any tax. That country is not that eligible to tax that particular income if you are doing business with foreign country. But suppose what happened, one more example. Due to heavy order from Nepal, there are various students in Kathmandu. I decided I will set up my office in Nepal. So just I open one branch in Kathmandu, Nepal. And that particular branch is delivering lectures as well as giving the books and all. So whenever a student wants the lecture in Nepal, they just visit the Kathmandu branch that is located in Nepal, and we are earning income in Nepal. Now question is that, is Nepal government is liable to tax that particular income or not? Is they will charge the tax on that income or not? Answer is yes, they will charge tax on that income. Because I am doing business in foreign country. So there are two words. One is the business with foreign country. then obviously tax is not chargeable in source country because there is no permanent establishment in that country. But suppose if you are doing business in foreign country, it means you have some branch office or your permanent establishment in that country, then obviously that country will charge the tax on your income because you are having the P in that country, permanent establishment. Now what is the meaning of permanent establishment and all? Don't worry, we will discuss in the future lectures. Now just pay attention what happened with the Google and Facebook. You know that Facebook is earning crores of rupees income from India. Google is earning crores of income rupees from India. But they are not paying any single rupees tax in India because they don't have any permanent establishment in India. They don't have any permanent establishment in India. Their server is located in outside India. Their all employee is located outside India. Now your question may be like that, okay, sir, Google is having one office in the Bangalore or Google is having one office in the Gurgaon. Guys, that office, that is just a temporary office, and that office is giving only preparatory and auxiliary service. That office is not giving a main service, and as per the various DTAA, if any office is just giving the preparatory service or auxiliary service, in that case that won't be treated as PE. That won't be treated as PE. Suppose for an example, your YouTube is not working. Your YouTube is not working or your Gmail ID is not working. You will mail to the Google. You know that you will receive the reply from USA. That employee located in USA, that person is replying you, means their all operation is from USA only. So they are saying that we don't have any P in India, we don't have any permanent establishment in India, we just have one office. That office is doing advertisement work and all, that is called preparatory work or auxiliary work. In that case, it won't be treated as the PE. So Google and Facebook and all this type of companies not paying any tax in India. So guys, what happened in 2016? We were the first country. We introduced one new law. We introduced one new law and we created one new tax that is called equalization levy. And now we charge the equalization levy to the Google as well as the Facebook. That's 6% is equalization levy. From last year, we also charge this equalization levy to the all websites and all. Websites means I can take one example. Okay, suppose there is one website is called Alibaba. That Alibaba website, they are running from China. They are dispatch goods to India also. We can purchase the goods from that Alibaba, but they are not paying any tax in India. So what happened in 2016 and last year we made one amendment, and now this online portal also, they have to pay some tax in India. That is called equalization levy. So you understood that Facebook and Google was not paying any tax. Till now they are not paying any tax. Just they have to pay the equalization levy, and in practical life I can say that they will not pay equalization levy from your pocket. Now you are payer. So you have to deduct basically. You have to deduct that equalization levy and you have to pay to government. But deduction is also not possible because many times what happened, Google and Facebook, they charge the advertisement fees and all through credit card. So suppose I just made one advertisement on Facebook, I just paid the 50,000, 60,000 rupees, directly they will deduct the 60,000 rupees. There is no chance to deduct also equalization levy. So ultimately I have to pay the equalization levy from my own pocket. So this everything about the Google, Facebook and all that online advertisement, that we will discuss in the equalization levy topic. So all people just pay attention. We have discussed that in international taxation and direct tax, paper is of 100 mark. Out of this 100 mark, your 70 marks is direct tax, that is income tax law we will discuss. 30 marks is international taxation. In that international taxation, first topic we will discuss about NRI taxation. After that, second topic is a transfer pricing. Third topic is a authority of advance ruling. Fourth topic is a equalization levy. Now fifth topic is a tax treaty. Now question is that what is the meaning of tax treaty? So guys, if you say tax treaty or double taxation avoidance agreement or tax convention, all are same. Tax treaty, double taxation avoidance agreement or tax convention, all three are same. So in this particular topic, tax treaty topic, we will discuss about the interpretation of the treaty or interpretation of the agreement. Suppose I can take one example. One agreement is signed between India and China. and there is some dispute because China agreement, that agreement is like written in two languages, suppose in English as well as the Chinese language. Now there is a interpretation issue, means how to interpret that agreement. So if there is an interpretation issue, then how to resolve that issue, that we will discuss in this particular topic, that is the tax treaty. So here in tax treaty topic, we will discuss about what is the tax treaty, what is the features of tax treaty, how tax treaty will be interpreted if there is a dispute, if treaty is written in more than two languages, and suppose like one language is giving different meaning, another language is giving different meaning, then how to interpret, how to apply that treaty, that we will discuss in that topic. Now next part is a next topic is a model tax convention, or I can say that MTC topic. So MTC, model tax convention. Now question is that, okay, MTC, what is the meaning of model tax convention? So guys, just we can take one example. Suppose tomorrow in your office, one client came and just client asked you to prepare a partnership deed. Client ask you to prepare a partnership deed. What you will do? How you will prepare the partnership deed? So there is one simple rule. Just you will take another partnership deed of your another client. So that is one model. After that you will ask the to new client, what is your name, your father name, your address and all. So you will just change that name, address, business clause and some clauses you will change. So easily you can prepare the partnership deed. In the same line, sir, suppose today Indian PM Modi ji and US PM Joe Biden, both suppose they sat on the table and now they are going to prepare a agreement, double taxation avoidance agreement. Okay, there should not be a double taxation and all, because due to residence rule and source rule there may be a double taxation. So they just want to make one agreement, they want to prepare one agreement. So how they will prepare the agreement? Okay, so Modi ji and Joe Biden both are sitting on the table, they want to prepare one agreement. How they will prepare the agreement? Obviously there should be some model, obviously there should be some performer, obviously there is another partnership deed, so they can check and they can change wherever required. So guys, for that purpose, in this particular world, there are three type of the model. There are three type of the performa for agreement or tax treaty, and that is called model tax convention. First performa is known as the OECD model. OECD model, normally OECD model is followed by developed country. So whenever developed country, they enter into the agreement, they normally follow the OECD model. One is the UN model. UN model, whenever developing country enter into the agreement or arrangement or treaty, they follow the UN model. And there is one more model that is called US model. US model is followed by US only. Whenever US enter into agreement with any country, then US will, that they will follow only that model, their own model, that is called your US model. Which model India follow? So India is a developing country, so obviously India is follow UN model. We follow the UN model because we are part of UN, so we follow the UN model. So India follow the UN model. Now that is only model, means performa. You can change also whenever you require, you can change also, that is called UN model. Now next part or next topic is a BEPS, or I can say that base erosion and profit shifting. Now what we will discuss in that topic, BEPS. After globalization, multinational companies, they started working in more than one countries. And after evolution of the internet, because through internet, like it is not possible to identify where that company is located, where their main office is located, where their server is located. So there was that very difficult part for the government to tax that type of transaction. I can take one example. Suppose in India, you are just playing one game, that is one game was like blocked by government, na? PUBG, yeah, PUBG. So PUBG game, you are playing PUBG game from India. Now that server is located, suppose in some tax haven countries and all. That company is located in some another country. But you are you are just playing the PUBG and you are making payment also. You purchase some guns and all in PUBG and you made some payment to the PUBG company. You made the payment through credit card. They are earning crores of rupees. And it is not possible to charge tax on those type of company. And where it should charge, because now earlier that law was the permanent establishment and all, but this type of company, they are having server in one country, that company is incorporated in another country, they are earning income from that third country and all. So it is not possible to identify the transaction itself. So sir, every country was, you know, that thinking that they are losing their money. Every country was thinking that every country were thinking that they were losing their tax money. So what happened? G20 country and OECD country, they sat together, and after they made some action plan, and that action plan is known as the base erosion and profit shifting. What companies were doing, you know, that they were just shifting their profit. Suppose for an example, I can take one example. Okay, suppose in domestic law, if you have written that if your server is located in any country, it will be treated as PE. Then what they will do, you know, that they will set up the server in any tax haven countries like Bermuda or like Switzerland or any some like island company. They will set up server in that country. So they will set up server in that country. So obviously that country is a tax haven country. They will not pay tax anywhere. So obviously whole world is losing the tax. So whole world, they came together, and after that G20 country and OECD country, they decided that we will prepare or we will make one antivirus. Because people are like spreading the virus, we will make one antivirus, and that antivirus is known as the base erosion profit shifting action plan. So there are total 15 action plan that we will discuss in that particular topic. Now that equalization levy charged by India, that was recommendation of the BEPS action plan number 1. BEPS action plan number 1, that was recommendation by the BEPS action plan number 1 of the equalization levy, and India was the first country in the world to impose the equalization levy on the Facebook, Google and all. You got my point or not? Yes. So all about this is all about your income tax, like direct tax part and international taxation part. Now all people just pay attention. Sir, you are saying that our 100 marks paper, but now 100 marks is is there is any MCQ, descriptive and all? So all people just pay attention, huh? So your paper number 7 is of 100 marks, but out of this 100 marks, yes, 30 marks is international taxation, 70 marks is your direct tax. Now, in this 100 mark, you will get 30 marks MCQs. MCQs means multiple choice question. A, B, C, D. Akkad bakkad bambe bo, 80 90 pure 100. In Hindi we call it akkad bakkad bambe bo wala. ठीक है. So MCQs you will get of the 30 marks, but MCQs nowadays, you know that MCQs are also calculative. You need to solve the question. MCQ you need to solve, and after that you just tick mark one answer. So MCQs also this time exam in the July 2021, MCQs was very tough. Like you have to understand the concept, then only you can solve the MCQ. It is not like a CPT, okay? So 30 marks is your MCQ and remaining 70 marks is your descriptive. Remaining 70 marks is your descriptive. Now guys, in this 70 marks, you are going to get the 6 question of 14 marks each. 6 question of 14 marks each means every question weight is 14 marks, 6 question of 14 marks. But guys, out of this 6 question, your question number 1 is compulsory. Your question number 1 is compulsory, and from question number 2 to question number 6, total 5 question, you have to attend any 4 out of 5. Means you have to attend any 4 out of 5. So in simple word, can I say that your paper will be 30 marks of MCQ. So this 30 marks. After that 70 marks. How 70 marks will be calculated? Out of 6 question, you have to attend only 5. And in 5, first question is always compulsory, or I can say that mandatory. And guys, always this first question will be from the DT part. Always this first question will be from the DT part. So direct tax part, that first question, and mostly it will be from the total income. Mostly it will be from the total income. Total income means you have to calculate the income from business, capital gain, IFOS, house property, salary and all, and after that you have to calculate the tax also. So that total income DT part, that will be question number 1. Now remaining 4 question you have to attend. Now in this 4 question, or total 5 question, because out of 5 you have to attend 4 question. Now in this 4 or 5 question, always there will be a 8 marks direct tax, 8 marks DT and 6 marks is your international taxation. So always 8 marks from DT and 6 marks from international taxation. So in international taxation, can I say that 6 mark question multiply by the 4 question you have to attend? So it will be total 24 marks, and 6 marks will be normally 6 marks will be in your MCQ part. So total 30 marks weightage to the international taxation. Now guys, sir, you are saying that from question number 2 to question number 6, always 8 marks from direct tax and 6 marks from international taxation. So in DT, always question will be of 8 marks only, or there may be a split also, like 4 marks, 4 marks, or 6 marks, 2 marks, or like 5 marks, 3 marks. Answer is there may be a split also. Many times, most of question, like 3-4 question, they will give you up 8 marks, but some question they will the split also, like 4 mark question, 4 mark question, or 5 mark question, 3 marks question. In international taxation also, like always you will not get of 6 mark question. Many times you may get 3 marks, 3 marks question, or 4 marks, 2 marks question. You got my point or not? Yes. So this is all about your exam paper. 100 marks exam paper. Out of 100 marks, 30 marks is your MCQ, that is multiple choice question, and your 70 marks is descriptive, means you have to write. And in 70 marks, question number 1 is compulsory 14 marks. Out of question number 2 to 6, you have to attend only 4 questions. 1 question is optional, you can optional. Also you will get some internal option also. Okay, suppose in second question, suppose you are getting 8 marks, out of 8 marks there is a 4 marks, 4 marks, but in 1 4 marks there is a 1 option. So that is possible, sometime internal option is also possible, because mostly you will get the exam paper of 120 marks, and out of that you have to score 60 marks to get the exemption and 40 marks to clear the exam. You got my point or not? Yes. Okay, now next part. Sir, in income tax, we will discuss about sections and all. We will discuss about sections and all. Sir, just tell me one thing. Suppose it is written here that section 12(3)(5)(d). How you will read this particular section? How you will read this particular section? Section 12(3)(5) and D. How you will read this particular section? How you will read? Just tell me. Some people will say section, after that subsection, subsection, subsection. Is it like that? Or section 12, clause 3, clause 5, sub clause D. Is it like that? How you will read this section? Just tell me. Sneha is saying section 12, subsection 3, clause 5, subclause D. Is it like that? Niranjana, Anshu. So they are saying that section 12, subsection 3, clause 5, subclause D. Is it like that? Answer is yes. Almost everyone gave the right answer. All are right. All are genius. So basically this is the section. So first part is a section, second part is a subsection, third part is a clause, and fourth part is a subclause. So it will be read like that, section 12, subsection 3, clause 5 and subclause D. Now my question to all of you. Suppose I have written section 2 and here it is 11 or 2, 14. How you will read this? Section 2, subsection 11 or section 2, clause 11? Section 2, subsection 11 or section 2, clause 11? Amrita, section 2, clause 11. So when clause and when subsection? Because when it is written, suppose 15(3), you will say that section 15, subsection, section 15, subsection 3. Then why here it is clause? Someone is saying subsection or clause? Subsection or clause? Apadi pode. Jaldi bolo. Tell me fast. Today's I am taking first time like English lecture after 5-6 months. So we used to think in Hindi. So many times you get confused. Don't worry about that. I will explain you 2-3 times. Okay, Amrita is saying that definition. Section 2 is for definition and here it will always call it clause. Is it like that? Income definition, so clause. Oh. Okay, there is one more section. Section 10, 1, 10, 10, 1034, 1035, 1038. It will be called as subsection or clause. Subsection or clause. So many people are saying that, sir, subsection clause. Huh? Okay. There is one simple rule. Just remember that. There is one simple rule. You have to remember that. Normally, after section, whatever written, it will be known as subsection. After section, like section 15, whatever written, it is known as subsection. It is known as subsection. But guys, in section 2 or in any section, suppose one list is given and in that list, if every clause don't have any relation with other clause, in that case it will be known as the clause. Means there is a one list is given and in list if one point is not having relationship with other point, then it will be known as clause. I can take one example. Okay, suppose 211 is a definition given for the slum sale. 214 definition given for the capital asset. 224 definition given for income. 247 definition of transfer. So here there is a definition section and in definition there is no interlink with each other. There is no linkage with each other. That's why it is called as clause. In section 10 also in income tax. In section 10 also, since there is no relationship between each part, because 10.1 is a agriculture income is exempt. Suppose 10.10D is a your life insurance policy something. 10.10 is a gratuity is exempt. Suppose 10.34 earlier dividend was exempt. 10.35 UTI mutual fund income was exempt. 10.38 long term capital gain earlier on the certain security that was exempt. So there is a list of exempt income. But there is no interlink with each other. That's why it is called as clause. That is the normal rule for every law and normally it is applicable in income tax. Income tax it is applicable. There may be a contradiction. Some people says that, no sir, in GST there is a section 2 and subsection. We call it subsection, but no. In income tax we always call it clause. Whatever written after section 2 it is always clause. After section 10 it is always clause. So always remember that there is a list and if there is no interlink or no relationship with each other, then it is called as clause. And if there is a relationship, suppose section 15.1 and 15.1, after that 2, after that 3, here there is a linkage with each other, then it is known as the subsection. You got my point or not? Yes. Now next part is related to the case law. Guys, you know that there are various case laws because in income tax we will discuss the case laws. There is a one case law. Name is suppose BB versus CIT. After that 256 CTR 39 Bombay High Court. Okay, my question to all of you. In any case law, first name of respondent or petitioner means first name like a person who filed the case or person who respond the case. In any case law, first name of respondent or petitioner. Tell me. Okay. So some people are saying that first name is a person who filed the case or who respond the case. Okay. So I think everyone is saying that some first name is of the petitioner, means here petition is filed by BB, or I can say that case is filed by BB. That is always first name. Second name is a CIT. CIT means respondent. CIT means Commissioner of Income Tax. That person is respondent. So here BB versus CIT means BB filed the case and CIT is respondent. Now in every case law, there is one this number, many times this number 256 CTR 39 and all. What is the meaning of this number? So this number reflects that this case is recorded at which place. Like I can take one example. In my book, suppose your PGBP is at page number so and so. Your PGBP is page number 120. So now question is that where that particular case is recorded. Where that particular case is recorded, so this is that number, that CTR so and so, so that case is recorded at that place. So whenever you want to check that case, whenever you want to get that decision, what was the decision in that case, so directly you have to put that number, you will get that case law. So that is basically recorded number. There is no need to remember this number. After that, there is a one Bombay High Court. This is the Bombay High Court judgment, Bombay High Court judgment. If it is a Supreme Court judgment, then obviously instead of Bombay High Court, there will be SC was written, that SC will be written. So SC means Supreme Court judgment. You got my point or not? Yes. Now there is one simple question to all of you. Now we will move to the tax, or I can say that income tax. My question to all of you, very simple question. Why government charge tax? Just tell me. Why government charge taxes? Why? What is the need of tax? Very simple question. Why government charge taxes? Tell me. Okay. Some people are saying that it is a source of income for government. It is the revenue of government. It wants money to run the country, to expand to the public, to implement welfare schemes. Wow, great. Some people are saying that to do the corruption. So how they will do the corruption if they don't have any tax and all? But all, like, you know, that English student are so like very genuine student. They always say that, oh, it is for develop the country and all. If you check the morning batch now, how they answer, you know that they always answer like that. Okay, sir, to do the corruption. That is the first answer. Okay, why government charge taxes? To do the corruption. One student replied that, okay, sir, government is charging tax because you can teach the income tax. Otherwise you will not, you don't have to teach the income tax, because if there is no income tax, then how it will be, like you will teach the income tax. One student replied that, sir, government charge the tax because they can include that particular subject in CA final. Otherwise there will be no study in CA final. So to include the subject in CA final, government charge the taxes. So that is the reason? Is that the reason to charge the income tax or tax? Answer is no. Obviously that is not reason. So why government charge income tax or tax? All people just pay attention. So many people given the right answer. Means to develop this particular country, to run this particular country, government charge taxes. So all people just pay attention. So why government charge taxes? Because you have given one big responsibility to our government. You have given responsibility to our government, that government has to grow this country as well as the run this country. Means government has to grow this country, they have to develop this country, they have to run this particular country. And obviously to grow any country or run any country, government need two things. One is government need power. First part, government need power. Obviously to run any country, government need power. And second is government need money. Now government need power as well as the money. Now question is that power, where power is given? So government need the power, and power is given to government by Constitution of India. If you check the Constitution of India, in Constitution of India there are various power given to the government. If government wants to make any law, then they can make any type of law. And that power is given in the Constitution of India. So power is given in the Constitution of India. And in Constitution of India, there is one article, that is article number 246. And if you check that 246 number article, in that there are three lists. On this particular matter, government may make any law. There is one union list in 7th schedule, that article number 246, and in 246 they mention that there are three lists. One is the union list. Whatever matter cover in union list, on that particular matter, our central government can make the law. Matter cover in a state list, that state government may make the law, and in concurrent list they both can make or impose any law. So guys, one is the power, that power is given in the Constitution of India. So related to income tax, there is one entry that is in union list. Union list, there is one entry number 82. And this entry number 82 says that our central government has power. They can make any law to impose the income tax on all income other than agriculture income. That other than agriculture income, if our central government wants, then they can make any law. So through this particular entry, that is entry number 82, our central government is charging income tax. So that power is given in the entry number 82 of the union list in the 7th schedule in the article 246. You got my point or not? Yes. Now all people just pay attention. Sir, you are saying that on agriculture income there is no tax, because central government cannot impose any tax on agriculture income, because entry number 82 says that central government can charge the tax on all income other than agriculture income. So sir, who will charge the tax on agriculture income? That power is given to the state government. If your state government wants to charge the tax on agriculture income, then there is one entry, that is entry number 46 in the state list. And in entry number 46, that power is given to our state government. State government can charge the tax on agriculture income. But in the today's market, you know that no one is charging tax on agriculture income. Today, agriculture income is totally exempt, or I can say that fully exempt. Now your question may be like that, sir, what do you think, that is agriculture income should be exempt only, or there should be some tax on agriculture income? I personally feel that there should be a tax on agriculture income. There should be a good basic exemption, no problem at all. Give the 50 lakh rupees basic exemption. Means any farmer is earning more than 50 lakh rupees in a year, then obviously he should pay the tax, some tax to the government. Today farmers are earning income that is more than crores of rupees in Punjab or Haryana or developed like a state. They are earning lots of money from the agriculture income, and they are not paying any single rupees tax, because agriculture income is exempt. But if you check any salary employee, you and me, suppose if any salary employee, that person is earning only 6 lakh rupees in the year, he paid the tax, he paid the income tax, then why that farmer is not paying the tax when he is earning a crore of rupees? I am not saying that you should charge the tax from the poor farmer and all. Just give the exemption limit of the 50 lakh rupees. If any person is earning more than 50 lakh, then only he should pay the tax. Otherwise, there is no need to pay the tax on agriculture income. Nowadays, you know that there are various companies. They are engaged in that agriculture activity. They engaged in agriculture activity. They are earning crores of rupees every year, and they are not paying a single rupees tax due to this particular point. And state government is not charging any tax on the agriculture income, and central government don't have the power to charge the tax on agriculture income. Now, many people nowadays, you know that many people, just to convert your black into white, what they do, like suppose I can take one example. I am having the 10 lakh or 20 lakh rupees black money. Now I want to make it white, because if I want to make it white, then obviously I have to pay the tax, but without paying tax I can convert it into white. How? Suppose I am having one agricultural land. I will just take one bill from that person, that broker, agriculture produce broker and all. Just I will take one bill and I will give him the cash of 10 lakh rupees, and he will make the payment in my account, and I will show it as an agriculture income, and that is totally exempt. So nowadays, you know that various people, they just have some agriculture land, and they are converting black money into the white money due to this particular provision. So I personally feel that there should be some tax on the agriculture income, because a person, salary employee, he paying tax even he is earning 5 lakhs or 6 lakh rupees, and if any person is earning crores of rupees, he is not paying any tax. Obviously that is not good. There should be a tax on agriculture income. That is my personal feeling. Your view or your opinion may be differ from my opinion, no problem at all, but my opinion, there should be a tax with good basic exemption. Give them the good basic exemption, but if they earn more than that, they should pay tax on agriculture income. You got my point or not? Yes. Now next part. So what I am saying, that why government charge the, okay, one more interesting fact. What happened, I just read somewhere, I don't know that fact is true or not. I just have to verify that. You should also verify that. What happened, one person disclosed the agriculture income of 1 crore rupees, for an example. In his ITR, he disclosed the agriculture income of 1 crore. Now in assessing officer asked, okay, this 1 crore income, he disclosed that it is from agriculture income. This is the sale of agriculture produce. Bill is there, sale of agriculture produce. So this is the agriculture income. Now assessing officer asked him, okay, so what you sold? So he replied that food grains and all. So he said that, okay, food grains. So in which particular period you just cultivated that food grain? So he just given one period, okay, from suppose July to December, I cultivated this agriculture produce in this particular farm, and for the sale of that agriculture produce, this is the income of 1 crore rupees. Income tax department just called the satellite photos of that particular farm for that particular period. And in that particular period, they just call the satellite photos from government authority and all, and they shows that they, like in that satellite photo, there was no crop at all on that agriculture land. So that may be a possibility. Like now that particular case is true or not, I don't know, but I read somewhere that this was the one case. So just you have to also find out that particular thing. So if it is possible, then obviously people will stop the converting their black money into white money and showing the agriculture income. So I just read one case law on somewhere, I don't know where I read, but that was one case. So just you have also check that particular part. So now next part, all people just pay attention. Government, why government charge the taxes? So government charge the taxes because they have the responsibility to run this particular country and grow the country. And to run and grow the country, need of two things. One is power. Power is given in Constitution of India. They are having the huge power in Constitution of India. Whatever they want to do, they can do. Second is money. Sir, from where money will come? Because to run a country, develop a country, money is needed. Money is required. I can take one example. Suppose there is a one person, one student, name is Vijay. Vijay, I am just taking your name as an example. Okay, one more point. Whatever example we took in this particular class, whatever example we take, that example is based on the, like you know that is the imaginary example. There is no relation with your actual life or my actual life. If there is any relation, then that can be a coincidence only. So there is no relation. So don't worry about that. So suppose there is a one person, name is Mr. Vijay. There are two actors in South na Vijay. One is the Vijay, only Vijay, and one is the Vijay Devar something, that is one actor also, I know. Okay, so what happened? There is a one person, name is Vijay. Now guys, just remember one thing, Vijay. Next month, Vijay is having one girlfriend, and next month, there is a birthday of girlfriend. I will call it birthday, not birthday. I will call it birthday. So next month, there is a birthday of girlfriend. Now there is a, nowadays you know that in couple there is a one system to give the surprise and all. Every hour they will give some surprise, some new gift and all. That is some system that was not there at our time, but nowadays there is a one system to give the surprise and all. So what happened? Vijay. So here Vijay girlfriend birthday next month. Now Vijay planning to give some surprise, good surprise, cakes, gift and all. So first what Vijay will do, you know that? First Vijay will prepare one budget. Okay, what will be the expenditure to celebrate birthday of girlfriend. to grow their relationship, to maintain their relationship, what will be the exact budget. So he just prepared that total budget will be rupees 3000. So 3000 rupees needed. Next month, birthday, girlfriend. Now, from where to finance 3000 rupees? So first source of income will be the stipend because Vijay is doing articleship. Next month our stipend is due. So obviously first he will get the stipend. So out of 3000 he know that 1500 he will get from office, or I can say that the stipend he will get the 1500 rupees. Now shortfall is 1500. Remaining 1500, from where he will get the remaining 1500? So obviously first he will ask to parents. First he will ask to parents, and normally we guys are more connected to our mother. Like normally we don't have good connection with our father, we always connected to the mother. So Vijay will ask to mom, okay mom, actually I need some money. Now Vijay is explaining to mom, okay mom, there is a birthday of my friend birthday in the next month and we have to give him the party. So mom replied that Vijay, I know that if birthday of any person, then that birthday boy or birthday girl will give the party. How you are giving the party? Then Vijay just explained, no ma'am, no mom, in our case there is a reverse mortgage or reverse charge. So we will give the party to our friend. So just Vijay explained that. So what happened? Mom gave him the 800 rupees. So 800 rupees is from parents. Now there is a shortfall of 700 rupees. So from where he will get the 700 rupees? Obviously he will ask to his friend. And he will ask to his friend and he will say that, okay, friend, please give me 700 rupees now. There is a birthday of Bhabhi, we call it Bhabhi. So your birthday of your like my girlfriend, and I want to give surprise and all. So I need the 700 rupees. So friend will finance the 700 rupees. Now guys, there is no difference between Vijay and our government. There is no difference between Vijay and government. Now government need the money. So from where government will get the money? So government will get the money. First part, government will get the money from the businesses. So obviously government is having various business. For an example, railway. For an example, Indian Oil Corporation, BPCL, they are having the good holding in the holding in that particular companies, or LIC. So government is also doing the business. So first they will finance from the businesses. But whatever need of government, if that is not satisfied from their businesses, then obviously they will ask from their parents. Government will ask money from their parents, and guys, you are the parents of government. Because you voted to the government and you formed the government, basically you voted to the government, so you are like parents of the government. So government will ask you for the money, and they will ask the money in the form of the taxes. And suppose from taxes also government need is not satisfied, in that case government will take loans and all from all World Bank and IMF and all. So they will take the loan from foreign country as well as World Bank and all. So all people just pay attention. First question, why government charge the taxes? Because government want to develop this country, to run this country. And to develop and run this country, they need two things. One is power. Power is given in Constitution of India. One is the money. Money is from three sources. First is their own business. Second is from people, or I can say that the taxes. And third is the loan from foreign country or World Bank and all. Now next part, we are now going to start with the taxes part. So guys, there are two type of the taxes. One is the direct tax and one is the indirect tax. All people just pay attention, huh? There are two type of the taxes. One is the direct tax and one is your indirect tax. Indirect tax, there is one law, that is income tax. And in indirect tax, there are various type of indirect tax like GST or custom, etc., etc. There are indirect tax. Now my first question to all of you, direct tax and indirect tax. First I will explain you what is the difference between direct tax and indirect tax. Direct tax is a tax which is charged by government directly from the person who is supposed to pay tax. Means directly they charge tax directly from the person who is required to pay tax. That is called direct tax. I can take an example. My income tax will be collected from BB sir only. Your income tax government will collect from you only. Your parents' income tax will be collected from parents only. That is called direct tax. Means directly collected from the person. That is called your direct tax. And indirect tax. Indirect tax is a tax which is indirectly collected from the person. Now in indirect tax, person who actually pay the tax and person who just made the payment to government, that both person are different. I can take one example. You purchase our classes or you are attending this live batch. Suppose your fees is a 15,000. But guys, in this 15,000 fees, divide by 118, multiply by 18, it comes to the 2288. That is 2,300 approx. That is the GST amount. Now this GST amount we collected from you and we remitted to government. That is called indirect taxes. Means ultimately person paying the tax is different and just collected from, like we collected from you and we just remitted to the government. This both person are different. That is called your indirect tax. So guys, out of your 15,000, now never tell to anyone that BB sir fees is 15,000. Just tell him that 15,000 out of that 2,300 we are making payment to our government, Modi ji, central government or state government, whatever. Like we are making payment to the state government, central government and all. And remaining only 12,000 something. That is the fees of the BB sir. That is called your indirect taxes. So direct tax. Directly government collect from you, indirect tax, indirectly they collect from you. Now my question to all of you, in direct tax and indirect tax, which tax collection is easy from government point of view? Means government can easily collect the tax, direct tax or indirect tax? Direct tax or indirect tax? Which is more easy for government to collect? Direct or indirect? I'm waiting for your answer. DT or ITT, which is more easy for government to collect? Wow. Everyone is saying indirect tax. Everyone is saying indirect tax. So is direct tax or indirect tax? Right answer is, yeah, Karthik is saying that ITT, not indirect tax also. He is a ITT. Jayashree ITT. Okay. So I think everyone is saying indirect tax, right answer. ITT is very easy for government to collect because ultimate person don't know that he is paying tax or not. I can take one example. Suppose we collected 15,000 from you as a fees. Now in this 15,000 you are paying 2,300 as a GST, but you don't know about that. You are not aware at all that you are paying GST also to the Modi ji or to the government. So here that ultimate customer don't know about the tax liability. That's why it's very easy for government to collect the tax. But guys, in direct tax, there is always, like it's very, like you know that it will hurt to you that out of your 100 rupees income, suppose you are getting the 100 rupees income and you have to pay the 35 rupees along with the like cess and all. Suppose you have to pay the 35 rupees to the government, then obviously it will hurt here. In direct tax, it will hurt. So obviously people will conceal more direct tax, but indirect tax is very easy. People don't know about that they are paying tax or not. Like I can take one example. Suppose you recharge your mobile phone for 1,000 rupees. In that 1,000 rupees, 18% is a GST, but you don't know about that you paid the 18% GST. So it is very easy for government to collect the taxes, but in direct tax, obviously there will be like hurting. It's very hurting. Like you know that when you earn 100 rupees and you have to pay like 35 rupees to government, then obviously you will feel that why it should be like 35 rupees. So people will conceal the income, people will do some like evasion and all. That is in direct tax. So indirect tax is easy to collect, direct tax obviously difficult to collect. Now one more point, that's why in income tax you know that there is a concept of TDS and all. Why they introduce the TDS concept? You know that TDS concept because from your income At least some part should be remitted to government at the time of income only. So government will get some amount and you will also feel okay, no problem, our 10% is given to government at the time of receipt of that amount only. I can take one example to understand this concept. For an example, today you want to purchase one classmate notebook and that price is 70 rupees. You need 70 rupees. You need 70 rupees to purchase one classmate notebook. Just you ask to your mom, कि mummy, I need 70 rupees to purchase a notebook. Now what happened? Suppose mom replied that, कि dear, I don't have change of 70 rupees. Just take this 100 rupees note and just give me back that 30 rupees after 2-3 days, whenever you comfortable after purchasing the book, just give me back that 30 rupees. Now you receive the 100 rupees from mom. Now after 7 days, suppose mom asks you, what happened with that 30 rupees? Just give me that 30 rupees. Now there may be a two possibility. One possibility, you don't have the 30 rupees. You already spent that 30 rupees. You don't have the 30 rupees. So you will say, I don't have the 30 rupees. Now second possibility, you are having that 30 rupees. You will give that 30 rupees to your mom, but you will be very angry while giving that 30 rupees. You will say that, okay, Lily, take this your 30 rupees. I think I am not your son. You think that I will not give you that 30 rupees. That 30 rupees with you or me, what make any difference and all? Why you are asking again and again? You will feel very bad in that. Guys, you know that here you are feeling bad because you receive 100 rupees and now you have to return the 30 rupees. That's why lawmaker introduced the TDS. Suppose if you receive 70 only, then obviously that will not a situation. You will be happy only, can no problem at all. But suppose if you receive 100 and you have to give back that 30 rupees, then obviously there will be a possibility. You will feel very bad that you have to repay that 30 rupees. That's why government introduced the concept of TDS. Okay, suppose I am receiving professional fees of 100 rupees and out of 100 rupees I receive the 90 rupees, it will not hurt me more because I always presume that okay, 90% is my income, no problem at all. But suppose if I receive 100 rupees and I have to pay back that 10 rupees, then obviously there will be a issue. That's why government introduced the concept. That's why our government introduced the concept of the TDS. You got my point or not? Yes. Okay, so people, now we will take one break, a small break of the 10 minutes. What we have discussed till now in the income tax, just pay attention now. So first we started with your paper, like 100 mark paper. Out of that 70 marks is a direct tax law, 30 marks international taxation. In international taxation, this topic we will cover. After that, 70 marks is your descriptive, 30 marks is MCQs. 70 marks, out of that first question is compulsory, 14 marks from direct tax. Remaining question, you have to attend 4 questions out of the 5 and 8 marks is from DT and 6 marks is from international taxation. After that we discussed that how to, like you know, that pronounce that section and clauses. After that, case law. Why government charge the taxes? Because government have responsibility to run this country, to grow this country. They need the two things. One is the power is given by the Constitution of India, and second is money. From where they will get the money? There are 3 sources. First is their own business, second is the taxes, and third is the loan. Now in taxes, there are 2 type of taxes. One is the DT, one is the IDT. DT we will discuss here in this particular 70 lectures batch, and IDT you will discuss in your IDT classes. So DT and IDT, which tax is easy to collect? That is IDT is easy to collect. IDT, indirect tax, means that collect indirectly, but direct tax is directly collected from the person. So that much we have done till now. Now we will take the break of the 10 minutes. You can have your coffee, tea or dinner, whatever you want. After 10 minutes, we will start with basic concept of the income tax. So thanks a lot people. Just take a break.